Hello everyone, I am back with yet another Star Wars The Acolyte video. This time we're not really going to be talking about any of the episodes, or even the season overall. This time I want to talk about the Sith, because we have a bit of a Sith situation in this show. So, for context, this series takes place about 100 years before The Phantom Menace, and we have that line from Phantom Menace, which is when Qui-Gon tells the Council he thinks that the warrior he fought on Tatooine was a Sith Lord. Ki-Adi-Mundi pipes up, "Impossible, the Sith have been extinct for a millennia." And Sam Jackson follows up with, "I do not believe the Sith could have returned without our knowing." So, naturally, the Jedi don't think that the Sith are around. And the reason for that being, at least in Legends, I don't know what the situation's going to be in canon, because they haven't really covered that era of the timeline. Part of me hopes they never will. But the reason for that, at least in Legends, was about 1,000 years before Phantom Menace. A Sith by the name of Darth Bane manipulated events to where that basically all the Sith that existed at that time, except for him, were wiped out. Like, all the Sith Lords except for him were killed, because he believed by there being so many Sith, because at various points in time, the Sith had either as good a numbers or were even greater than the Jedi. And Bane believed that this was a problem, a huge problem, that basically that he believed that really the Sith weren't going to get anywhere with the numbers like that, and that really should have thought this out before I started talking about it. He believed that the numbers were a problem. And a lot of this came from when Bane went off on his own to learn the teachings of the Sith, because he felt like the Brotherhood of Darkness had failed him. That their way of teaching the dark side, where everyone is equal, was a load of shit, in his opinion. And after quite a while of searching, he came across a holocron created by the Sith Lord, the long-dead Sith Lord, Darth Revan. And there's actually a passage from the novel Path of Destruction by Drew Karpyshyn. I've never been able to pronounce his last name. But just look up Darth Bane, Path of Destruction, and you'll find it. It's a really good book, in my opinion. The Bane trilogy as a whole is great, in my opinion. But I'm actually going to read the passage from the book where Revan describes essentially what will lead Bane to create the Rule of Two, which there should only ever be two Sith Lords, a master and an apprentice. By its very nature, the dark side invites rivalry and strife. This is the greatest strength of the Sith. It calls the weak from our order. Yet this rivalry can also be our greatest weakness. The strong must be careful, lest they be overwhelmed by the ambitions of those beneath them, working in concert. Any master who instructs more than one apprentice in the ways of the dark side is a fool. In time, the apprentices will unite their strength and overthrow the master. It is inevitable, axiomatic. This is why each master must have only one student. This is also the reason there can only be one Dark Lord. The Sith must be ruled by a single leader, the very embodiment of the strength and power of the dark side. If the leader grows weak, another must rise to seize the mantle. And this, in a nutshell, explains the rule of two. There is one Sith master who has the power, and an apprentice who covets it, who seeks the power. If the master becomes weak or the apprentice outgrows them, they are to overthrow the master. If the apprentice becomes complacent, shows any sign of weakness, or doesn't attempt to overthrow the master, then it is the duty of the master to eliminate their apprentice and start again. It's for this reason that that the apprentice training someone else, granted, Sith apprentices have done it in secret. If I remember correctly, in the Plagueis novel, Palpatine actually starts training Darth Maul before he assassinates Plagueis. Actually, if I'm remembering Legends timeline correctly, Maul actually falls at Naboo before Plagueis is even killed. So, there is that. But that is an action that usually precedes, if it happens at all, it precedes the apprentice's attempt on the master's life. But, but just the idea of there being 3 Sith, as per the rule of 2, is borderline forbidden. There cannot be 3. There cannot be more than 2. Which, leads us to a bit of an issue in The Acolyte. Not that that show doesn't have many issues, but it does lead us to a bit of a problem. So, by the end of the Acolyte, and I should have warned at the start of this, we're already 8 minutes in, but I should have warned at the start of this, there will be spoilers. I'm going to spoil the ending of the show. By the end of the Acolyte, it's very obvious that Kimir is Plagueis' apprentice at this point in time. The way it seems obvious to me is when he goes to take his helmet off Osha and he's stopped. Like, you can see him struggling to reach for her. And then we see bits of, like, the mind trick stuff that the witches on Brendok could do. But there's but at the time when you first start the episode, there's only 2 people on the planet, Kimir and Osha. And if it wasn't Osha doing it, then that leaves 1, Plagueis. So in my mind, this kind of solidifies that Kimir is Plagueis' apprentice. So, and at the end of the episode, obviously Kimir is going to be teaching Osha in the ways of the dark side, the ways of the Sith. Which means now, at this point in time, there are 3 Sith Lords. Well, 2 Sith, 1 apprentice. So, which is a clear and direct violation of the rule of 2. So something needs to happen. But there's a bit of an issue here. If the theory that Plagueis had a hand in the creation of Osha and May is true, if they are an attempt at him to manipulate the Force to create life, to create this very powerful force-sensitive being that he intends to use as a weapon for the Sith, as he attempted to do in the Plagueis novel. Even though technically Osha and May are a failure in this regard, because remember, they're supposed to be one being, but somehow they wound up being two. So, in my mind, Plagueis has a couple of options here, given that, you know, the apprentice in question is the byproduct of a failed experiment. He may want to sit back and watch and see if she could be of any use. Which then leads to one of two possibilities. He's either just going to sit back and let Kamir do his thing, or he may come out of the shadows, kill Kamir, and decide to take Osha as his apprentice himself. Kamir could also decide to rise up against Plagueis, but given that Plagueis is the one that trains Palpatine, we know how that confrontation is gonna go. So yeah, we have a bit of a situation here, like, we have 3 Sith, which cannot be a thing, and he eventually needs to do something. Eventually, possibly, he might need to do something about May, because she's proof of his experiments. She might somehow be able to help Bernestra Rowe track down Kamir and Osha. So, Plagueis has a bit of house cleaning that needs to be done. Whether he decides to, you know, kill Osha and punish Kamir for taking an apprentice, kill Kamir and take Osha as an apprentice, or just, excuse me, or just, you know, clean house in general. May very much doesn't seem to want anything to do with the dark side anymore, but then again, you know, wait till Tuesday and she might. So, who knows? That's very much up in the air and left to be decided if a season 2 of the show ever comes about. And, even then, who knows? We kind of had to hit a point in Star Wars now that the future's very uncertain. You know, difficult to see. Always in motion is the future. So, but anyway, I just wanted to give my 2 cents when it comes to the Sith in the Acolyte, the Rule of 2, that whole sort of thing. And, I will hopefully be back soon with my thoughts on the Acolyte overall. Until then, see you next time.